welcome back to my channel. I am so glad that you are here. Again, that is welcome to those who are new and welcome back to the ones who are already part of the family. I am super glad that you are here. And as you can see, we are diving into a recap and review of the premiere of the reconstituted TV show, the Braxtons. And I can't say how excited I am to actually see the family back together again and on our TV screens. I mean, they are most certainly the family that brought so much joy in the times past when they had their seasons prior. Now, one of the unfortunate and sad things about the show, obviously coming back into fold, is that we are all very much familiar. If you have been following the show, and if you're here watching this video, then you're probably pretty familiar with the unfortunate passing of one of the beloved sisters, Tracy Braxton. And we absolutely miss her. We really do. As you may recall, Tracy had passed away a couple of years ago. I believe it was April of 2022 from esophageal cancer, which is basically cancer of the esophagus. So they really did do a nice job at sharing, information from the ladies on the confessionals, about Tracy and their memories of Tracy. And just, this is a very raw situation naturally. And so the fact that they opened up their, lives back to us again as their fans is pretty special, I would say. So I am excited about them coming back. It's been quite a tumultuous road even prior to Tracy's unfortunate passing, but in between the time from the last series they did, which was the Braxton's Family Matters, and that time frame that they did for I think it was like 6 years or so, maybe 6-7 seasons maybe. And then when that basically ended, and then it rolled into Tamar and Vince's reality show, and that lasted about 2 or 3 seasons, and then that ended, and then we had Tamar try to take the reins yet again to do one with just herself and her boyfriend at the time, David. Because as we all know, Vince is her ex-husband and father of her son, who I believe they still have a very good relationship with, definitely a very good co-parenting relationship with. So we love to hear that and love to see that. And there's just been a lot going on for this family. We have really come to love them and appreciate everything about them in regards to what they show and share with us as fans. So it's bittersweet because I'm excited for them to come back, but I'm also sad that Tracy is not part of the journey in the visual sense for us to see. But we're just, just happy that, we get to see how the ladies are doing, including Miss Evelyn, their mother, of course, who seemed to be very excited about coming back. And also felt that, hey, we shouldn't have left in the first place. So I thought that was really sweet. And I'm glad that they're excited about this. I'm glad that they feel very much open to doing this again because they were so beloved. They really were so beloved. One of the things that was so great about this series, the Braxton's Family Values, was that it gave us an opportunity and a glimpse into their family life, beyond the singing, really, right? We got to see the different dynamics of all of the sisters and even their brother as well, some other extended family members. We got to see a lot of the journey opened up about their parents' divorce many years ago, but also seeing how that continued to affect the ladies and their son probably as well throughout all the years into the adult year, right? And so we got to see, babies being born as well. We got to see other type of family events, as well as unfortunate passings of other family members as well. You may recall Gabe, which is Trina's ex-husband, who actually was on the show for a few seasons. Really seemed like a really go-lucky guy. There was a little bit of scandalous drama with them, and they kind of brought that to the show. But they did wind up still continuing to being friends, even when Gabe tried to repropose again in one of the seasons. Obviously, this is prior to Vaughn, her husband that she is married to now, who she has been married to for the last 5 years, and happily so. She says that she is just as in love with Vaughn as she now as she was then. So that's really good to see. But Gabe was also a big part before Vaughn of the lives of the ladies as well as on the show. And so when we heard of his passing, I believe in 2018, if I'm hopefully I'm correct on that, that was also very sad. And I do remember that actually being in the news circuit. So yeah, I was very sad. He also passed away from cancer. He was also a veteran, an Air Force veteran, if I remember correctly. And since I'm an Air Force veteran, that really, touched me as well. It's just another relatable aspect of Gabe. So, may he continue to rest in peace, as well as Tracy. So yeah, they really showed and opened up about a lot of their family life, right? They showed us a lot of things, a lot of the stripes that they went through, but not just the stripes, but also the love and the fun and the spunkiness of them. We got to see the singing, the events, the moment they can just at any moment, really, drop of a dime, if you will, go into sing song, right? Or just showing the antics that they have and what was them, and just showing all that sisterly and brotherly love when their brother was able to be on the show at times as well. So it was such a nice way of watching really good, wholesome, if I dare say, reality TV. Not all reality TV has to suck, and not all reality TV has to be riddled with drama and craziness to the point that you get sick of watching it and then don't want it on anymore. They, with the Braxtons Family Value, really brought a whole nother sense of, I really want to come home, relax, and watch the show, see what the ladies are up to for that week, and just enjoy the conversations that would come spun out of that show. Because the show, as we all know, was extremely popular, lots of fan base for the show. We all loved to see them. We loved everybody, all the sisters, brother, everybody, Miss Evelyn, everybody. They always had a good word for us. They always had a good saying for us. The jokes, the shade was real. It was just great. It was just, everything that a lot of people can relate to in family settings. And they just brought a lot of fun to us when they had their show. So, of course, when that show did come to an end, some probably thought that it was probably not a bad idea, because we did start to see some things really start to take hold. That was just not so pleasant, but these are the things that family members go through. There was a lot of counseling and that was going on towards that end, and therapy that was definitely needed. But one thing I can definitely appreciate, and I'm sure many others can as well, is the fact that they not only, went through that process, but they showed that it was okay to be in therapy. It showed that it was okay as families to get together and be in therapy, because often you may be in situations, obviously, where each person has their own thought and they sit in their own little corner, but they're not willing to reach out, or too afraid to reach out, or it could be too dramatic to reach out. But they really showed how they came together, even if they could not get along or be on the same page as the next in regards to what was happening and what's going on. So that was really a beautiful thing to see. And I think a lot of people can grow from that and learn from that, and maybe even took some of what they saw and put it into practice in their life if they needed to, as far as how I can get to reconnect with my family members and to, deal with old wounds and actually handle those tough conversations that they really did share a lot with us in. So this is the package in which we come to love the Braxtons, I feel, and we appreciate. And so this is where I think we'll continue to see a lot of that family resilience and different challenges naturally that has now occurred and has happened since. And, we're going to be here for that time frame, and we'll see how all of this goes. But as of right now, the premiere just premiered on Friday, and I believe it premieres on Fridays on WeTV. And so that's coming home again for them, right? And it was a really good premiere. I really thoroughly enjoyed it for the aspect of, just being there and listening and just seeing them really on the screen. It was very touching, very emotional, naturally, because we're now opening up, what has happened, what did happen with the passing of Tracy, of course. And so that definitely allowed us to be opened up to see things from their perspective, and, some of the things they wanted to share about her passing, and even before her passing, but when she was going through the journey that she was unfortunately having to go through. But we just, really had an opportunity, and I think it was a treat for us to be able to, have them to share that with us. And so there we go. Of course, the new show now called The Braxtons. It actually started off with a lovely montage. I love a montage, but a lovely montage, great flashbacks of all types of events and times throughout the previous shows that it heavily included Tracy. And that was really nice to see. So we got to laugh a little bit more, got to cut up a little bit more about what was going on, and we just really enjoyed it. We also see that as the premiere of the show is upon them, they're actually coming up on the 2-year anniversary of Tracy's passing. So of course things are very tense in that and very emotional, and a lot of things have continue to take place because life continues to keep lifing after this fact, and so we get a peek into that as well. We then move into 2 days before the grief counseling, and we are meeting up with Trina and Vaughn in their beautiful home in Atlanta. They're actually, kind of just talking with each other. Trina's over there cooking on the stove, and Vaughn is very hungry. She says, "Of course you are," basically. What else is new? But they're just having, just a married couple bonding time, basically talking about quite a few things. Trina's kind of an opening narrator for us to let us know where the ladies are at this point. The fact that they are still obviously very much in the thralls of grieving, that unfortunately that due to Tracy's passing and, all of these things maybe subsequently that they had to go through with that, because it was a very tough time, obviously. The ladies have not really worked together or been together in that kind of way as far as being around each other since then. It's been about 3 years. Vaughn does ask Trina also how they feel about the show coming back. And, she says she's basically nervous about that. She doesn't know how it's going to go at this point, because of the fact that the ladies have not really done anything work-wise together for the last 3 years. There has been a bit of space. She doesn't want to call it an estrangement, but there has definitely been some space because of such the traumatic situation of Tracy's passing. And of course, the ladies, as you may recall, do live in different areas as well, which also can add on to that extra layer of a strain when it comes to trying to get together. We're brought up to speed with the fact that Trina and Tawanda still are living in Atlanta, that Tracy, we do know, lived primarily in Baltimore with her brother. And we know that Tony and Tamar are in California. Now, Tony does go back and forth. So she's what you would call intercontinental, I believe. And so or intercountry, I think it's intercontinental, but she, has resides in Atlanta and a home also in LA. Also too, we do get to know that, and I believe the show's going on possibly right now. We're getting ready to rev up for now, but we do know that Tony's back in LA because she's also rehearsing for a show. And we'll talk a little bit more in depth about that a little bit later, but we know that's part of what's really keeping her there at this moment. So of course, part of the conversation with Vaughn and Trina also extends to Trina sharing about little Kevin. Little Kevin, if you may recall, is Tracy's son, adult son, who I'm just so glad for the fact that he was able to have her for, an important moment of him having a child. So Tracy was able to see her first grandchild, as well as, seeing him get married. There's a little bit to talk about with his marriage as well. Unfortunately, we will get to that here shortly as well. But of course, Trina is worried about little Kevin. Naturally, there are all the aunts, and they want to make sure that they are there for him in any capacity that is needed. She shares that she doesn't want to say anything negative about Big Kevin, or Kevin, which was Tracy's also husband, because he's also going through his own grieving. But it felt maybe that he wasn't maybe as available for being there for little Kevin during this grieving process, because naturally we all do grieve in the ways that we do. But she wants to make sure that they close that gap. So that little Kevin understands that he does have someone and feels that someone is always there for him. So I think she handled that very delicately in sharing that. I know that that's probably very difficult, as a lot of us have dealt with, and I am no stranger to that as well. Having family members pass away and having situations in which you have to come together, and that can be very challenging. And a grief process is very different from everybody. So I think she handled that very delicately, and I'm sure he could appreciate that too. So there's a lot going on, at the end of the day. She says, it has got to be difficult for little Kevin to, have a situation where effectively, one parent is shut down through the grief and the other parent is no longer with them. So they really want to, again, bridge that gap for them. And I think that's great for them to be able to be there and allow him to be there. But he is also the only child of Tracy's. And so that's also, heartbreaking. Him and Tracy, as we got to see in past seasons in the Braxton Family Values, they were extremely close, right? That was like his best friend. That was her best friend in essence as well. So very, very close bond, mother and son relationship. So it's really just so unfortunate and so sad for his loss in that. So at this point, they're kind of wrapping up their conversation. Vaughn is with Trina at the home, and he's really there as a support system. He really wants to make sure that she's good to go no matter what, and that he's there for her. I like the fact that he is extremely supportive of this whole new venture they're having, and so that is really good to see as well. Then we also kind of end off that portion there where Trina is letting us know as narrator that Tony has contacted all the ladies and that she wants to have a dinner with them because she wants to share something with them. Of course, Trina is a little bit apprehensive about the situation because she says typically Tony can be, somewhat, not recluse per se, but kind of guarded with her feelings and doesn't always come out and say exactly how she's feeling about certain things. And so she said this time she sounded a bit melancholy and she was a bit concerned about that. So at the end of the day, that made her really, really, really nervous. But, they were going to meet up. And I believe that the dinner was actually going to be in Atlanta. So that was an opportunity for them to also get together because they hadn't seen each other in so long either. So there was basically how that was going to be set up. And then, we get to see more clips and such of, their moments in the past and everything. That was really nice to see. So after that, we then move on into the ladies actually meeting up for dinner. And of course, all the ladies are there. Tawanda does come a little late, but the interesting and fun part about it, because the ladies are also very fun, is that Tawanda actually comes in without even with Trina, but in the same exact outfit. So that was cute. And they get a laugh about that. It was fun to just see that. It was nice to see Miss Evelyn and just everybody being happy to see each other, happy to be together, happy to be in the same room because it has been really difficult. And she shares about that as well. She also shares how much she misses Tracy, naturally so, because of course Tracy's presence is sorely missed. I mean, very much so missed. And so they do reflect on that as well as they're speaking together at the dinner. Tony does also share at this sit-down dinner that she is actually working on a show, and I mentioned that a few minutes ago, called Love and Laughter, and that's with Cedric the Entertainer. So that's what she's doing in California. I'm not 100% sure if the show's actually going to be performed in California or if it's going to be performed in Vegas. So I'm thinking at this point, we'll say California and LA, and if that changes, then I'll make sure I reflect that in the next recap review or the future recap reviews in which it's mentioned. But she's also letting us know about this show, but like I said, I think it might be going on now or getting ready to go, I think, at this point. But one of the things that is also very pertinent about that is that she's sharing that she's also extremely nervous about performing. And there's definitely times where she may find herself in positions, this being Tony, being nervous at times for performance. That can happen, but this is different. And we're about to find out here shortly why that is. Now, before we get into that portion there, she does reflect for us as a refresher about the fact that when she was in Vegas, she had about 15 years ago, a Regency. And I do remember this, and maybe a lot of y'all will have too, where it was shared that she had gotten ill and she went to go see what exactly was happening with her. And she found out that she had lupus, and that's an autoimmune disease. So very serious. It can manifest itself in many different ways for different cases, different situations, different people, but it is a very serious health situation to go through. And Tony has been very open and transparent about that struggle for many years now. Pretty much since it happened or occurred or she found out about it, she's been very open to us as, the people, so to speak. about those struggles. And that's also very helpful to, anytime when, someone, a celebrity status, or anyone with any kind of platform status, gives out, shared information for people that helps them and brings them together to learn more about something. It's always helpful and always definitely welcome. And just so sorry that she has to go through that situation. So that is very much alluding to the nervousness, because even then at that time, Tony had been told that she was never probably ever going to be able to perform again. And as we can see, the years, God is good, and that's not been the case. She may not have been able to be at the same level that she once was or would like to be, but she's always been pretty active with, videos and shows, and definitely shows all throughout the different seasons of the Family Matters, Braxton Family Matters show, as well as just off the show. We've got to see her performing with the girls and, her sisters and all that good stuff. So that's always a good thing to be able to see. She takes her health very seriously. And so she's been doing all the things that she needed to do to make sure that she would be able to do what she needed to do. So we now are also getting to the point where they're talking more about, just refreshing moments. And as they're discussing these things, she does share also with us, part of the nervousness is also that, the ladies do know that she had had a stent put in her heart because she was having some serious complications. The only thing that they didn't know was all of the particulars behind that. So as they're talking about that, and yet before we even get into it, there's a little bit of levity that takes place when who was it? I think it was Tamar that actually asked Tony, hey, so how's things going with you? You got a man, basically. So Tony just basically lets us know that she's no longer engaged. If you remember, she was engaged to Birdman for a little while there, and it was a kind of a did they or didn't they thing going on for a while as far as if they got married or not married. I think they're probably still friends. I don't think they're necessarily dating seriously anymore. She said she's no longer engaged and she's not married. And that was the most that she was going to tell us. But other than that, she's also focused on her sons, because, she has 2 adult sons, I believe. Both of them are adults now, and young adult sons, and her career. So, if there's something else that happens with the matters of the heart in the sense of love, then I'm sure she will let us know, or won't, and we'll find out some other way. So then, as she's telling us that she's focusing on those things, again, we talked about Tawanda arriving, and then we get a little bit more information about how it was brought to their attention, if you will, how it was brought to their awareness about Tracy's illness. Basically, I believe it's Tawanda may have brought up, or Tamar had brought up that, as they're reflecting about Tracy, that it was during the time where they had flew out to LA for the birthday for Tony. And Tracy had basically shared that, when she was swallowing, her throat area was very much of a burning sensation, very, very uncomfortable. And, would joke about, getting something to drink, to kind of quench it. I think it was a libation type of drink. And come to find out that unfortunately, when she did finally go and get checked out, she finds out that it's cancer. And she then gives Miss Evelyn a call to let her know. Miss Evelyn reflects and shares about that moment when she got the call that she was stricken with cancer. She also had shared how Tracy was very much, letting her know, I'm going to beat this. And she says, you know what, I know you will. So, Tracy always had a fighting spirit through all of the trials and tribulations that they have shared with us. We knew that she was quite the fighter, and she definitely wanted to be in a situation in which, she could capture and recapture the essence of family through the music. And so that was always such a strong suit for her. And so strength was always, something that she was definitely about, that no one could ever tell you otherwise. Tracy was that girl, right? She was that chick. She would have your back in all kinds of situations. She was there for you. And it was just really, just a testament to her fighting spirit, obviously, very much so a testament to her fighting spirit. So, at this point, as they're talking about it, Tamar does suggest that maybe we should all go to grief counseling because it's very, tense situation even to this time. One of the things about when someone passes, as we all know, we all may grieve in different ways, but I always say that it's never a situation where you'll ever get over. It's just becomes something of a new normal. You have to know how to live in this space now without that person, and that can be extremely challenging. And so at this point now, they're bringing up the possibility of them going to grief counseling, which I think that's extremely helpful, as well as it gives it another opportunity that they share that with us. So if anyone is dealing with something like this themselves, they have an opportunity to maybe see how this goes for them, and may decide to go for themselves if need be. So that was really important. Miss Evelyn also shares that, a few of the ladies have had counseling, different types of counseling. Some have had grief counseling, and we find out a little bit more of that with Trina, which she shares a little bit about that. But we also know that, and speaking of Trina, that Miss Evelyn shares with us as the narrating aspect, that Trina for sure will need a lot of grief counseling because she was actually the one that was there when Tracy had took her last breath. And so that's a whole nother level of grief as well, attached to the grief of losing the person. So she's very much recognizing that that is part of the situation, in which is very tender for Trina naturally. So, of course, Trina wants the focus to now be taken off of her because it's getting to be a very emotional situation at this point, emotional conversation. And she just turns it to Tony. She's like, because at the end of the day, we are here for something that Tony wanted to share. And of course, there is some apprehensive to know what that is, but at the same time, we want to know what that is, right? So Tony does share basically about, the heart situation. She talks about the different tests that she had to run. And so, of course, Tamar interrupts and says, what's going on with your heart? And of course, Tony is nervous about sharing this with the ladies because, like she said, the last time that they had a health scare was with Tracy. So, at the end of the day, she didn't want to have to bring that or go through it herself to the ladies, because she was very nervous about that. So, yeah, that was it was pretty hard. You could tell it was really hard for her to share that. So with that being said, she does say that the testing took place at the doctor, and then she thought she was going through another type of testing, but the doctor said, no, we're actually going to put you directly into some type of a procedure because we need to take a look at your heart. And it ends up being that it appears maybe because of the damage, potential damage of her having her lupus, is probably what is damaging her heart wall. We'll probably get more information as time goes on, or as comfortable she feels in sharing. But at this point, her heart has been very much compromised to the point where if she was literally in a position, if she had a heart attack, she would not make it, just point blank. And the doctors let her know that. And so that was very disheartening to hear, of course. And she's obviously naturally very scared about that probability, because of the fact, she does have her boys and she wants to be there for her boys. And she is very scared, and she shares how scared she is at every moment that she could have heartburn. And could that be an actual heart attack? You just never know. She's so anxious and so scared all the time. And so all the sisters and her mother naturally rally around Tony, and, is just giving her the love and the support that she is needing. And, just letting her know that they are there, and that, you already beat this, and we're just going to keep doing what we need to do, and you're going to be okay. And we're going to speak that into existence. And I am firmly in belief of that as well, that to speak that into existence, that Tony is going to be okay, and that everything that needs to be taken care of will be taken care of to ensure that for her. The one thing that she does share, is that when the doctor was explaining to her, when you talk about the heart attacks, because there's different types of heart attacks that some of us may be more familiar with, but that he actually coined that one, the widowmaker. Now, I've heard of that one. You may have heard of that one as well. And that's basically just that you really, once it happens, it's done. It's the massive one, right? There's no coming back from that. And quite frankly, he said at this point, it looks like the condition of her heart, that she shouldn't even be here. And that he felt that her sister, being Tracy, was looking out for her because at this point she could be gone. And that's very jarring, naturally. He also does share that even though we do have the stent, which will buy her some time, at some point in the future, they will have to look at doing a bypass surgery. And so we will see how this opens and unfolds for Tony, but these are the things and challenges that she is now dealing with. And understandably, it was a very emotional conversation. It was a very emotional situation, and it was a very emotional scene. So again, we just want to keep our prayers and our thoughts out, and good thoughts, good ways of thinking for Tony and the rest of the family as well. Tony had also shared in her confessional that the reason why they decided to bring back the show was that Tracy simply wanted them to do it. She wanted that to be an opportunity for the ladies to get back together and be close together, because if you're working together, you're seeing each other, right? And also she wanted them to be able to share her continued story, do her story as life, as well as her journey through cancer, and in hopes that it would help others. And I think what a beautiful way to show of legacy is to have that as an also element to always thinking of others, right? And this is who Tracy always was and continues to be in the time, even though she's not visually with us anymore. So the fact that she wanted to make sure that her story was out there for people to be able to benefit from and learn from, I think is a beautiful thing. And this is why they decided to continue to move forward with that. It was a beautiful and emotional gathering, but they made it through the conversations, and they really kind of catched up with each other and had a little bit of fun in the process. And so it was a really nice moment. Then we move into still being in Atlanta, and Trina and Tawanda actually meet up as one-on-one, because of course, the two ladies live together. And I believe Miss Evelyn lives in Atlanta as well, but sometimes goes back and forth to LA as well. They go to a restaurant. Looks like it's a restaurant called Let's Get Toasted. And it looks like a really nice area. So, they're kind of getting together, speaking and all that good stuff. They also give us a bit of a rundown again on the living arrangements, as far as how the siblings are kind of paired off and their closeness because of their proximity to each other. And I shared that earlier, but just as a recap, they mentioned about how Tawanda and Trina are very close because they're both live in Atlanta. Of course, Tamar and Tony, between Atlanta and LA, but prominently in LA. And then Miss Evelyn, I think, is the same thing, back and forth between LA and Atlanta. Then we have now, used to be Tracy as well, but her husband and her family, her son and everything, is still in Baltimore, but also their brother, Michael Sr., is also in Baltimore. So that's how they, are mapped out, and pretty much still has not much has changed in that way. So Tawanda also then shares with everyone, some may know this, but she does share this in the show, that, Tawanda had shaved her head, as we can see, and it has been shaved pretty much since Tracy was hospitalized, I believe. And so some had thought, maybe is she sick, or maybe she was also cutting her hair in solidarity. We didn't really know. Well, Tawanda then shares, well, she actually has alopecia. And this was something that she was nervous to talk about, naturally. And, and had to come to grips for herself and acceptance of it. But she has now, and she looks still just as beautiful, right? And so they talk about, the closeness between her and Tracy in that time, where she had, talked with Tracy about shaving her head, and Tracy was very supportive of her doing that. So you should do that, and she was just really there for, she was a really, just a great big sister to her. And that gave her a lot of comfort. So we now know that that's another condition that one of the sisters is dealing with, but is bravely sharing it and being transparent with us. And so I would imagine we're going to get more helpful information in regards to that as well. And there's a lot of people who do deal with this at different stages of their lives. And so that's also helpful. During that gathering, Trina shares with Tawanda that, hey, little Kevin, Tracy's son, has been on her mind, because what's also being shared with us, not only does he lose his mother, and not only is he might have a bit of a space between him and his father through this grieving process, him and his very young marriage is also going through a divorce. It appears that his wife had asked for the divorce, and what Trina has shared is that, Tawanda, I think at this point, shares that, definitely the passing of Tracy has really, the effects and the unfortunate effects of the situation has made it really hard on him and his marriage. Of course, he's very tight with his mother, right? And so there's a lot of things going on there. But what they was nice to see is that his hair looked good. And they asked who did his braiding, and he said his wife did. So they were like, really, your wife? So, you kind of wonder, is it possible that maybe they can find their way to some sense of reconciliation? I guess only time will tell, and if they wish to share. But hopefully that they do, because obviously grief in the in the space of a passing of someone could either bring you together or tear you apart, and that's often happens in many different dynamics when death occurs. So hopefully maybe through whatever comes out of this show, whatever comes out of the grief counseling that they all appear to be trying to go through together, something could beneficially help to maybe keep his situation together, so he's not only lost his mother, but then turn around and have to lose his wife as well. So let's just definitely prayers up to him and his wife and their marriage, and may God cover them throughout this entire process. So they get a chance to talk to him on the phone. They, got to, see how he's doing, kind of checking in, want to make sure that he knows that they're there. And I think it's really lovely. He's, obviously sharing the sense that he is struggling with the whole thing. And, he's just one day at a time type of thing. The ladies do mention about them going to grief counseling, and also to include little Kevin, because they want to make sure that he's not left out in anything. And he's open to that. So that's a good start. So they kind of wrap up their time at that point, and the phone call as well. And it was a loving, goodbye on the phone, and we move on to the day of the grief counseling. And of course, all the ladies are getting together at Tony's house. This is where the grief counseling session is going to take place. Trina is the one that's actually been responsible for getting the grief counselor or therapist to this session. Her name is Spirit. Trina later does share within this time frame that she came across Spirit through her grieving process with the passing of Gabe. She said she wasn't really ready to go through that whole entire process for therapy with that, but of course she stayed in touch enough to ask Spirit to come now. And so this is how we are going to come to know Spirit. Of course, part of the session includes not just having the grief session, but it also includes the ladies, Trina and her mother in particular, cooking for everyone, so they can have all of or some of Tracy's favorite foods there. So it really feels in all kinds of ways that Tracy is there, not just in the grief process, which I thought that was a really beautiful way to honor Tracy in that time frame as well. At this point, Tony shares about how she looks at, in a confessional, she talks about how she looks at Tracy's like that butterfly to them, and also too, she references the fact that at this point she's really nervous about the session as well as some of the other ladies are as well. Everybody's kind of nervous in their own way, and sharing that through the conversations and narrating as they're getting to Tony's house. Also, Tony says, at this point she is living with a broken heart, and that's how she's having to learn how to do that. And I just thought that was really like, oh man, yeah, that's how it feels. It's just there's no getting over it, right? I don't personally feel there's any such thing as that. I think it's just you have to find a new way of living through, and it's a new normal, right? And it's not an easy one to go through, but they are doing what they can to try to get through that process in a way that is helpful for them as they move on through life. So the ladies, as they all gathered up to the house before Spirit gets there, they are, really just kind of fellowshipping with each other, having nice little moments there, getting the rundown about who Spirit is, and, some other things that were really sweet and helpful in that process. And of course, we then move into, now we're getting closer to the actual session, getting ready to be conducted. Spirit's on her way. And so, of course, all the ladies are getting themselves positioned to be ready for her. We also have their father and little Kevin who dialed in, so we see them on the monitor, so they'll be part of the sessions virtually as well. And I think that is extremely helpful, and it's so good that Miss Evelyn and their father, Mr. Braxton, managed to basically still be there as a family unit with everyone and going through this as a family. And I think that is a beautiful thing, because many people cannot stay in contact with people that they divorce. And although it was challenging, and although it has been very difficult, and we got to see a lot of those challenges and difficulties in the last series show with the family values, you can see that a lot of time has been put towards the effort of having to kind of be at least in the same space with each other and really being there in support of the children. At the most part, that's what's really at the end of the day what is the most important. So we get to the point where Spirit is there, everybody's sitting down. It's really obviously a challenging time, right? Everybody's kind of in a state of not really knowing exactly what they want to say at this point because you're so full of grief, and you can only imagine how difficult and challenging that could be. So Spirit definitely does try to start with Trina and get an idea of maybe where she wants to go, how you want to start this off. And Trina's like, hey, can you, can I not go first? Can you ask somebody else? Because there's clearly visually we're seeing a lot going on in their feelings. So it's just going to take a while. I can only imagine the next episode or two is probably going to delve in quite a bit into this session. And it's going to be one that you're going to probably need to be prepared for emotionally, because they're going to, from what it looks like for future advertisements to the show, that it's going to be tense. So at this point, everybody is there, and starting off with everybody showing up is a good place to start. So we will see how Spirit guides them through this session. She does basically, want to get an idea of where anybody wants to start. No one's really chopping at the bit to have this conversation, of course. And she's like, hey, I got to know what direction y'all would like me to go. She says, this is a judgment-free zone. I'm not going to base this off of who was right or who was wrong. We're just going to look at what's the problem. Let's see if we can come to some kind of, situation, because as Trina has shared, the situation has gone beyond the grief process itself, but it's also manifested in maybe some other issues that have been connected before or after or during this whole situation with the grief. So they're probably dealing with multiple things at this time. So it's going to be interesting to see how that gets navigated, but it's real. And that's what happens when you go through this process. So at the end of the day, I think they'll be just as transparent as they've been in years past, with episodes past doing the same thing. So we will see how that goes. We do know that all the ladies are carrying a lot. So we'll just have to see how this all lands up. So, as we're getting to the end of the episode, you may recall, the direction goes to Tony, and she's asked, what does she want to get out of this, or thinks, basically where she wants to start. And she said, I really don't know where we want to start at this point, right? So Spirit, of course, says, well, I definitely have to know, from everybody where you want to go, so I can, basically best help you. So, we will see. That basically ends the premiere of the show. So we will definitely see how this all plays into the factors of how they're going to go with this counseling session and beyond. This was quite quite an emotional, I would say, premiere. But you can see the healing happening through doing that. They're very much happy to be able to do something also that had the wishes of Tracy for them to do. So I think that was also a beautiful thing for them to continue to move with the ladies as well as a whole. So that being said, I would love to know your thoughts about the show. If you watched it, if you plan on watching it, if you hadn't gotten a chance and this is the first of you, hearing something about it. But if you did, I'd sure like to know your thoughts as well. So definitely leave those respectfully down in the comments below. Of course, I am looking to recap and review the season. So I'm looking forward to sharing and talking and communicating with you about this episodes as they go along through the season. And we will just see how all goes with the show. It's a lot I'm sure that they're going to be delving into. And of course, with a heavy concentration on the process of really addressing the grief and the subsequent situations associated with that grief of their beloved sister's passing. So I am very interested, and as a fan, of course, to, really see how this all plays out for the ladies. And I'm, of course, wishing them well throughout this process. As we see, of course, shows are taped earlier than what they're on current time. So these are things that they've already been through. So, that time or that sentiment spreads through all the way till now and beyond, of course. So yeah, definitely want to know your thoughts. So definitely respectfully leave them down below in the comment section. And I would say with that, I will bid you adieu for this video. And I hope that you do have a great rest of your day or evening, whatever time you are watching this video. Of course, if you are new here, please go ahead and consider subscribing. Then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I would love for you to be part of the family. And, hey, it's free. So go ahead and just be part of the family. I do a lot of recap reviews and worthy news, whether it be celebrity, non-celebrity, just whatever is interesting at the time. Definitely like to know your thoughts about all these things. It's been a lot of stuff coming out video-wise lately as well. So definitely take a look at the platform and see what kind of videos you're interested in watching. Hope you like them all. But definitely take a look-see on that as well. And so, of course, make sure you have your notification bells on so you will be aware of my next video dropping. So with that, I think, again, I will bid you adieu. I hope you have a great day. Be blessed, take care, and be safe. Thanks for being here. Bye.